This is the 80s Show on iHeartRadio.
Let's go. Come on, let's go. Say ho, ho. Say ho, whoa, ho, whoa. Let's start the show. Let's start the show. Let's start the show. Let's start the show.
Monday. You and I meet again. But this time, the advantage is yours. Anybody else having a problem crowbarring their ass out of bed today and getting where they have to go? If only mentally, not physically. I mean, you know, you're probably up. But it's the atom part that that evades you, the up and atom. You ever have one of those Mondays where there's just not enough coffee in the world to get the job done? Or worse, do you have one of those Mondays where coffee lies to you? You drink down your usual 2.5 cups that you need to usually ingest before you're bouncing off the walls, and nothing. Maybe you're a tad more irritated. You've got the beginnings of a caffeine-based headache, but those 2.5 cups didn't do what they were supposed to do. I hate it when coffee lies to us. So if you're having one of those Mondays, it's going to suck big, swinging, hairy things that distend from animals. But we'll get through it together, you and I. Thank you so much for joining me, being part of my radio family. Joining the conversation at 80SXE is where you can find me on Twitter. At FunkFM is where you can find super producer to the stars, Barry Funkhouser. It's an interesting one, really, because I remember once talking to a radio personality who shall remain nameless that I was working with. And she made reference to not being able to go out without having done her hair or something like that. I can't even remember what it was. It was some sort of like, oh, I have to get myself together before I go out because, you know, I can't have my fans see me like this. I was like, whoa, fans? We're on the radio. Let's just pull this one over to the side of the reality turnpike for a moment, shall we? We don't have fans. We are lucky enough, if we do our job well enough and we're on a station that has a decent enough signal, we are lucky enough to have listeners. And that's really cool. But make no mistake, we're in radio. We don't have fans. We have listeners. And now it's not even like we have listeners. It's an interesting one. People that tweet the show, I don't consider you listeners. I consider you contributors to the show because, well, yeah, and maybe one day I'll figure out a way for you to profit share. But right now your share would be a small percentage of nothing, so don't worry about it. But entertainment, it's amazing to watch entertainment evolve over the last 4 or 5 years. It used to be this one-way street. I would talk, you would listen. If you wanted to interact, maybe you would write an email to my program director or me or something like that. But it's a two-way street now. I react directly to what you tell me on Twitter. You're making cogent points to the show. So I don't even think of you as a listener anymore. I think of you as a valuable contributor to what I do, and I thank you for that.
Starting from here, my head is where I feel numb. From the front of my neck to the base of my skull. Taking it back by the way my mind is working. Like that, my emotion, my control is always shaking. So no, it be nothing at all. My mind is like an empty hole. I want to be calm for help, but all my friends are like a pressure valve. And what I need is salvation.
If you like what you're hearing, tweet the show at ADSXE. AD on iHeartRadio.
Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. This is my United States of whatever. Picture me giving the damn, I say never. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. Every day you're going.
So, Seattle is apparently considering replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous People Day. That's a thing. That's in the works. That might possibly happen. Russian sex geckos died in space. And there's an anti-terrorism coloring book, which is teaching kids about ISIS. We'll try and get to all of this today. But first, let's check in with super producer to the stars, Barry Funkhouser, and see what's going on in the world in a segment we call My Witness News. In no way, shape, or form fair, certainly not balanced. Funkhouser, how are you? How are things? How's everything? How's this Monday treating you?
It is one of those Mondays because I'm covered in soap. My shower broke this morning, and as it would be at like about 4:30 this morning, the water just stopped coming out of the top part right when I had just oodles of soap on me. Has that ever happened to you?
I've run out of hot water. I've run out of hot water right as I've been soaped up. I've never had. Do you have like a tub that you could sort of like? Because the absolute worst thing. Okay, maybe it's not the worst thing, but one of the worst things is when you sort of like walk around all day having soap that you failed to remove from various crevices, usually your butt crack. Like that's sometimes I feel your pain because sometimes, see, you can at least blame your broken shower. Sometimes I just forget. I'm like, I think I rinsed everything okay off, and like it's not until I'm in the car heading down the freeway with no chance of going back for a second or third rinse that I realize like I'm gonna have soap in my butt crack all day long and it already itches. This is gonna look good.
Yeah, it's always a bad time. Always. There's never a good time when that happens. I made it work though.
What'd you do?
Garden hose, front lawn. No big deal.
Are you kidding? Really?
No. I just turned on the tub and did a little, bathroom tub.
Splashy splash?
Yeah. Rubber ducky.
Yeah. A rubber duck. I actually often sort of like, if I'm really looking to get a quick wash on rather than jump in the shower, like sometimes I'll just fill the bathtub with like 1.5 inches of water and sort of like, what do they call it? A bird bath or a spit bath or something like that, when you're just sort of like basically getting in for the sole purpose of getting clean. You're not there to sit in a tepid pool of your own filth, and you just sort of,
Well, I enjoy sitting in a tepid pool of my own filth on a weekly basis. I like taking a bath, like, maybe once a week. Lighting the candles, getting in touch with my feminine side, and, doing the toenail clippings and all that. Looking all pretty.
You clip your toenails into the bathtub?
Sometimes when it calls for it, sure, yeah.
Aww.
I don't leave any residue. I finish the cleaning.
Not that I was in a hurry to, but I'm never taking a bath at your place
It's
ever.
like it was in the 1800s, and bathtubs are scarce when you don't have a lot of water. I do that all in one.
When I do the water conserving bath, when I just sort of like fill the tub with 2 inches of water and kind of like splash around into that, and that I refer to that as dipping my junk. Like I'm just gonna dip my junk so I can be socially acceptable. Give me 5 seconds. Yep, that's what I do. Okay, between my junk dipping and your toenail clippings, I think we've successfully grossed out anyone that's still listening. Perhaps we should move on to the news.
Tasty. All right. Well, celebrities came out this weekend in droves for Joan Rivers' funeral in New York City.
Yeah, mostly I think to make sure that she really was moved on, so they could start wearing whatever the hell they want without fear of her recrimination. Like, how do you feel about Joan Rivers passing away?
When people die and they're old and they just die, but good on you, old person, for going all the way to the end of the game.
She did have a good run.
Yeah,
she did have a good run.
It. It's just like, what's she gonna live till she's 1,000,000 years old? She's 81. You can tell that she's on the end of her tipping point, and it's all right. It's all right by me.
And she,
what about you?
She was up in the game up until the very end of the whole everything.
I mean, as a
I
comedian,
think
that's the way to go out. I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, be 101, be like George Burns and die on stage or something like that. I think that's what Jerry Seinfeld says he wants to do, and she worked up to the very end of her life, which is kind of cool. I don't know, like, I'm not necessarily, and it really made me think a little bit, because, like, when Robin Williams passed away, like, that got me, that it really did, and when MCA from the Beastie Boys passed away. That was a rough one. That was really difficult.
The untimely ones are just the worst,
When MCA passed away, that was more difficult than I ever would have imagined anything being. Like in terms of not more difficult than I would imagine anything ever being, but in terms of like, hey, I never met this person and they passed away and I'm legitimately sad about it. And I think it has to do with how deeply they touch your life. Like Robin Williams movies meant something to me. I watched them with my old man, and seeing the jokes that he laughed at made me understand my old man a little bit more. You know, it's like an MCA. Well, the Beastie Boys are just forever an irretrievable part of my DNA. Like I am so much of who I am because of the Beastie Boys. You know, they came into my life when I was a kid, and I kind of felt like I grew up with them, and grew up not necessarily with them, but you know, the maturity of their records, having discovered License to Ill in, like, I don't know, kindergarten or the first grade or whenever the hell it was that thing came out. That sort of like, that was a starting point, and I was with them on every single album for the next 20 years or however long it was.
Did you get that French instrumental album that they did? Do you remember that one?
The Mix-Up?
Yeah.
Yeah, it won a Grammy Award. It won a Grammy Award for Best Instrumental Album, and it's an amazing listen. Like, if you have a cocktail party or something, throw that bad boy on in the background, and it is super awesome, good times. It's excellent. But like Joan Rivers, I don't think I was that deeply affected by, because quite frankly, she wasn't that big a part of my life. I know she was a very big part to a lot of people's lives, but you know, I wasn't really familiar with her comedy. I'd seen her on TV, but I knew I really liked her as a person, and I sort of like, you know, the one thing that I kind of like took from her that I think is incredibly valuable, she was like, I'm successful because I'm willing to say what everybody else is only thinking. That's what she said. And I just, while it wasn't sort of like the big kick in the gut that other people's passing was, it did cause me to reflect and go, God, what a tough old broad. You know, whether you loved her or you loathed her or you considered her to be terrible, like, what a tough old broad who just took no guff and did what she wanted to do and made her own way in the world under nobody else's terms. Really sort of starting in a field that, you know, still is, and at the time definitely was 100% male dominated, like the cojones on this woman. And so even if she didn't touch your life, you know, her passing was definitely cause for reflection and cause to recognize her for having blazed her own trail in an environment where it wasn't incredibly easy to do so. So we take our hat off to her. What else?
I'm not wearing a hat. Can I?
I am.
Okay. Scarlett.
It's a metaphorical hat. Go with me on this.
Scarlett Johansson gave birth to a baby girl.
Yeah, baby is a sight to behold. Where she feeds even more so. But yeah, cute little kid. What else?
Sherry Shepherd is worried her ex-husband will release nudies of her. Nude photos of her.
Sherry Shepherd is all concerned that her ex-husband is going to put up on the interwebs naked pictures of her. Sherry's very worried. And for that matter, so am I. I do not wish to see these photos. What else?
For Fashion Week in New York City, Miley Cyrus, she showed up at a party topless, except for those little tassel things, you know? These little fluffy tassel nipple
pasties,
things. Yeah.
Nipple tassels? Yeah, all right. I think it's come to the point where, Miley, we all get it. You're a whore. What else?
Arnold Schwarzenegger, he bragged about the next Terminator movie on Twitter.
Yeah. 67 years old. 67 years old. In this one, the 67-year-old Arnold Terminator goes from "I'll be back" to "Ow, my back." Yeah, see what I did there?
Look at my titanium hip. Yes.
Oh, so much better. So much better. Well done. I'll chalk you up 2 points for that. What else?
Atlanta Hawks controlling owner Bruce Levinson, he's going to sell his interest in the team after admitting he sent a racist email 2 years ago.
Yeah. Everything was going just fine until he earned a sterling reputation. See what I did there?
Hashtag steal it, Sterling.
He's ashamed and he's humiliated by this foolish act from his past, which I have to assume would be buying the Atlanta Hawks. I don't think he was really worried about the racist comments. He was one of the people campaigning for Sterling to retire. I think he was just like, the Atlanta Hawks suck. I got to get out some way. I said something racist 2 years ago. Can I get rid of my controlling interest? Cool. Go on.
What is the Hawks? Is that football? I think
no, it's basketball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, makes sense.
That shows you how well they do.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Okay, so we learned some things watching the NFL's opening weekend. What did we learn?
We learned Tony Romo still prefers throwing to the other team. The Browns will always lose their opener, and that guy from Papa John's has a terrible plastic surgeon.
Does he ever have more than one facial? He looks like he's going to murder me when he goes when they do the Papa John's catchphrase. Is better pizza. I'm going to murder you.